Monday night I was awake from 12:30 to 3:30, which I actually don't remember, honestly, the last time I was awake in the middle of the night for 3 hours, just awake. My brain's racing, and to be honest, most of what I was thinking about was the church, you all in this space, and I was thinking a lot about our building. You know, one of our AC units went out. I spent about an hour on the phone with insurance people about the mold that we need to still fix, and not sure if we're going to have that claim honored. The elevator doesn't work. Let's just stop there because we know we can keep going. Let's stop there. I was thinking though, but also of like visitors who come and they they worship with us and we don't see them again. I don't know where they end up, whatever. I was thinking of friends who used to be really a part of our fellowship and who we used to love, and they're not around anymore. And here's the thing is I felt like I just couldn't turn it off. You know, I'm laying there in the stillness and silence of our bed, but in that stillness and that silence, it just goes. And I know you all are not much different. That's not something that's unique to Peter or, David's writing this. He's like, nobody's going to understand what I'm saying here. Maybe your mind really is racing and your heart really is restless because somebody actually wants to attack you. You read David and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably not what it is, though. It's probably more like this. You wonder, are your children going to grow up to be responsible people who love the Lord, who delight in him, who offer to the world something good and beautiful and true? Maybe you wonder if you're able to pay your rent check or if you're going to get that eviction notice that you're fearful of. Maybe your mind is racing with questions of forgiveness. Am I ever going to be able to forgive that person who lives in the same house with me? Is that relationship ever going to be restored? Will that person ever forgive me? Can we ever have peace like my heart longs for? Maybe your heart is just restless because of overwhelming sorrow. Maybe none of you know this, but Ed and Anna Camp would have celebrated in a week and a half their 65th anniversary. 65th anniversary. It's a beautiful, long, loving marriage. What a gift. And as you can imagine, what a loss for our dear brother. Don Kohler has been in the hospital for 9 days now. Some of you know that. He went in for difficulty of breathing, but they found some blood clots, and they've actually had to do surgery just a few days ago. And so far, he hasn't spoken since that surgery. The doctors think he's going to be okay, but of course, there's huge worry and understandable concern. Maybe you wonder with me how we as a church community can best train up our children that they would love the Lord with all their heart, mind, soul, body, strength. And how can we do that in the context of a church with little resources? Fewer people. How do we care for the teens of this church? Who will serve them? Maybe you wonder, how are you going to pay for school? Why do migraines hurt so much? Can we get an ESL program started to love our neighbors? Why do thieves break in and steal and moth destroy? Why do buildings and bodies age and decay? And why is it all so expensive? Here's what I'm saying. Once you begin to sit with stillness for a little while, there can be just a massive cacophony, constant sound of our concerns, sort of a whirlwind of our worries, and it can all be totally overwhelming. And you know that your prayers are a lot like David's right here. It moves from a sort of a confidence to a, oh my goodness, what's going on? And thankfully, sometimes the Lord calls us back, right? And that's what he actually does for a little while in verses 5-8, calls back, and David reminds us that God is our rock and our refuge. But then we also have David turn again. He turns to in verses 9 and 10, and he was speaking in those first verses, right, 3 and 4, a little bit about the stress that happens in silence. But then he actually speaks in 9 and 10 to the shadows that we look to for our salvation in the midst of the stress. And he actually lists this. It completely comports with what we know to be true. The first thing that we look to oftentimes to ease this dynamic are people. Verse 9, it says this: those of low estate are but a breath, those of high estate are delusion. In the balance, they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. Now, I pretty much never say this because normally I think the English Standard Version is a phenomenal translation, but this is a really weird translation. This is maybe how it should sound, but it sounds clunky. Verse 9, the first line: man, generally, is a breath. Meaning like general man. It uses the word Adam, right? Like Adam. It's the word for man, like people. But then it actually says specifically, but then the next verse says man specifically, uses the word ish, is a lie. Meaning this, okay, here's what's going on. David is saying that our temptation for our salvation, to give us peace, to ease the dynamics of stress and all in life, is to think that we can find that kind of salvation in other people. And maybe what we think we just generally need are just a bunch of just general people. David's like, in the cave, I just need an army right now. I need a whole bunch of people. Maybe what we need is just a bigger congregation. So that's part of what he's saying first. But then maybe he actually, the second line says about more specific people. That word ish is a more specific person. Maybe he's thinking, or what he's suggesting is, maybe you're thinking, oh, if I just have that person, then I'll be okay, right? Maybe your shadow of salvation is thinking that if I had my neighbor as my spouse instead of my spouse as my spouse, all this stress would be gone. If I just have that person, it'll be okay. If I get that one. But he says this is like the wind. It's like breath. It's actually as light as a feather. He says if you put people on the scale, they just fly right up, which is actually kind of a funny image because he doesn't say compared to what. He just says kind of anything. It's like a breath, you know. Put a guitar pick on this scale compared to it, and it's like, whoop, you know, no problem. He says it's like wind, it's like breath. There's nothing to it. It's a lie, and don't buy it. He's saying these are the places where you're tempted to go, this kind of salvation is going to ease all this stress and bring me peace. He says, don't buy it. But if the first shadow of salvation is people, the second shadow of salvation is possessions. It's almost like he was writing in the year 2023. Listen to verse 10. Put no trust in extortion, set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches, which doesn't just mean money, it actually just means what you have, increase, set not your heart on them. Doesn't this hit? How many times in the news this week did I hear about the mega millions? And how many of the preoccupations of our minds that rob us of stillness and silence and peace with God have to do with what we do or do not have? James 4, verse 1 and 2, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and you do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. How much of the restlessness of our sleep do we believe will be cured? If only we had certain things. A different house, a different job, a bigger retirement account. If riches increase, set not your heart on them. Don't believe the lie. These are shadows. They're just a breath. It's the same word actually the book of Ecclesiastes uses for vanity. It's vain that we're running after this stuff. It will not bring you peace. They are not the substance, they are shadows. They will not bring you salvation. They will not give you shalom. They won't. Now believe me, would I like our church to grow? The answer is yes. You can say yes. Yes, I would. Would I like for us to get the grants that we are applying for so that some of our, building needs can be addressed? Yes, I would. Please pray with me. But here's the thing, actually, and you know this to be true. If you have all the people and if you have all the money, but you do not have God, what increases? Envy and strife, haughtiness, bickering, division. Peace does not increase. Shalom is not the order of the day. If we have all those things and we do not have God, I guarantee that what we actually long for most will be farther from us. Our coveting minds will only grow more covetous. Our restless hearts will only grow more restless.